All right, it's September 8th, 2022, and this is the first meeting of the ISSS Knowledge Engineering group. I'm going to be updating the visuals on the uh on how it looks. Actually, never mind. I'm recording it a little bit differently than I usually do. So, Peter, please go for it.
Well, Daniel and I realized that in order to move forward with our web work and the education work, that we need to organize and present the work that has been done over the past 5 years within ISSS in a more effective and accessible manner. And I'm very interested in seeking people that can actually do something to make that happen. Over the past 4 years, I have assembled much on the ISSS website, but it's buried in PDF documents on a couple of wikis and other sort of video file, 200 plus video recordings of meetings and Saturday sessions and so on and so forth. And so we feel we need to urgently work on ways to make all this much more accessible, to index it, and to make it helpful to not only ISSS members, but also to the rest of the systems community. So that's my opening gambit, and I'm really interested in people turning up here willing to do something, and that can mean providing input on how it should be presented and accessible. Of course, that's a very helpful contribution, but also very interested in people turning up here to actually be prepared to do something over the next 2 weeks to 4 weeks to 6 weeks, so we can actually not talk about it, but do it and learn by doing, I guess is my point. So that's my opening gambit. Interest, Daniel?
Yes. So, welcome everyone. Really appreciate you joining the initial conditions, and I'll add in one more person. So it's a great turnout, and welcome to Katrina and Stephen just joining.
Good.
I'm sharing in the chat this page that I'm on, which is a Coda page for this meeting number 1. It's also where the recording and the transcript will be posted. And again, I don't expect people to be hyper familiar with Coda right now. And people will use it to different extents in different ways. And I also want to make sure that there are ways to contribute that aren't with Coda, that are using like whatever skills and tools people have. And I well, also nice to meet many of you. I'm newly in the VP Education and Communication role at ISSS, and over the last several months with a discussion with Peter and others, we assessed that this nexus of like accessibility and learning and education, digital presencing, all of these features were going to be important to focus on. And so we wanted to create this knowledge engineering endeavor specifically, as Peter had just reflected, to be improving and structuring the availability and the utility of many of the knowledge resources that ISSS already has, as well as thinking about how to use, communicate, and integrate other resources. We'll, after this, be able to just go around, say hello, and then we can go into some more like work-oriented topics. And of course, everyone is welcome to take notes and make questions during or however. And knowledge engineering can be an infinite game. So we are not going to try to boil the ocean. Olaf made great points about setting realistic expectations and objectives and so on. I think something smaller than boiling the ocean, but larger than a cup of tea, we have out for ourselves. And I hope and believe that we have a lot of the raw resources and human resources to bring major improvements to ISSS's knowledge environment and more broadly. So, that being said, it'd be awesome to hear from everyone who wants to share or say hello or introduction, and then we can talk more about some of these latter points. So, anyone who would like to say hello or an introduction or reflect their experience or preferences in knowledge engineering or anything else.
Well, I can jump in if you want. I can certainly introduce myself. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephen Davies. I'm the managing. Oh, we got hands up. I see. My apologies.
No, go on. Go on.
Carry on. All right. Thanks, Peter. So I'm the managing director and one of the principal consultants with a small firm here in Toronto, Canada, called Transformation by Design. We are an impact consulting firm who do a lot of work in the not-for-profit and government sectors, aimed at systemic change and certainly systems change. So I've been a certified management consultant for 30 plus years. My specialization in consulting is what I call information management consulting. Some of the credentials that I bring to the table include such things as data modeling, conceptual modeling, business modeling, taxonomy development, semantic modeling, so on and so forth. So I do have some credentials in the information modeling space, and thought I might be able to lend a hand to whatever it is that we're up to.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you. So let's go with this. Raise your hand, and Roland, you've raised your hand on using the reactions, and then Yanis.
Thanks. I think this is very exciting. I think it's very important from our organization's perspective as a major step to move forward. It's consolidating all the work Peter has done before, and I'm going to be mostly an onlooker only because of time and capacity limitations. So, but you have all my support, and thank you so much for taking up this initiative, Peter and Daniel. And I've connected you with Mark in email. I see Daniel, you in connection with him, and Olaf and I spoke about this as well. So if a core team would be wonderful to do stuff. I'm ashamed to say that I won't be part of the doing simply because of capacity, but I can be a moderator and give input and check stuff out if you want another opinion on things. But at the moment, unfortunately, I'm more like an onlooker than a doer. Thanks.
Yeah, but Roland, it's wonderful that you're here, and as president of ISSS this year, it's crucial that you know what we're doing. And obviously, as a professor of information management and systems, you've got from time to time you can give us oversight and thoughts, and it's certainly somewhat of a response to your challenge about knowledge management and information that you've said at the beginning of your presidency that we're here. So thank you for that. Yanis.
For those who might not know me, I'm based in Cyprus. I am the founder and current CEO of Future World Center. Future World Center is an activist civil society organization doing a lot of research, but also practical interventions in society globally. The key interests are sustainability development goals, education, and political transformations. Now, I am here tonight and I want to contribute because I'm a strong believer that systems science is desperately needed now more than ever on the planet. And I am really depressed that we as a society and we as individuals, we are not really contributing what we could contribute towards solving the big problems of society. And to do that, we have to start from within. And starting from within means more communication between us, more accessibility to each other's resources and knowledge. And it all comes down to putting all this knowledge and all these resources that exist in one place that are easily accessible for everyone. So whatever we talk about, we give a link and that's it, and people can download it or read it. And at the same time is like a repository of resources, but also something educational. Now, I am biased, I have to say this in advance, because I'm a strong believer of open source and media wiki approaches. So I believe in simplicity. I also know a lot about knowledge management and a lot of sophisticated tools, but I think that if we want to make our resources and general knowledge and conferences and software and stories about people and theories and so on accessible, one of the best tools that exists is the Media Wiki. That's the engine that is being used by Wikipedia. Everybody knows how to edit it, so this means we can mobilize crowdsourcing. Anyone could have an interest to update it, add more information in it, make suggestions for improvement and so on. And it is based only on two simple concepts. One is the concept of a template, and the other is a concept of the category, which means you create templates, templates for people, templates for software, templates for theories, templates for conference papers, templates for publications in journals, templates for books, and so on. And then you also create categories. Every article, every page that you publish could belong in multiple categories, which means that the indexing system is kind of self-sustained and automatic. And this is what I want to propose as the solution. And I can also help a lot by helping create the templates and categories and so on. I have a good team that could help and so on. Of course, if something else is chosen, I will still try to help, provided I know the tool and I'm able to help. But I'm a strong believer of simplicity.
Thank you. I totally agree with you on simplicity. And I will say that I have actually months and months ago, back in January, maybe, I installed a media wiki on one of the ISSS servers. And frankly, I haven't had time to sort out some DNS error that is existing. So, you know, there's already an install of media wiki on one of our things. And if you can start contributing ideas on templates and categories, I think we could have a small group that would work on using media wiki as one simple answer. I think there are probably multiple answers to a lot of this, and much of the I put as much as I could in the mind map, which I sent the link, which I think is off the web page that I created, so you can see what we've currently got as resources. But I wouldn't. So that's where that is, and I think we could definitely start thinking about that in some way or other. The question I have, which I'd ask you to think about, is, you know, there's me, and it's not my full-time job. You know, I'm doing this web piece on a yeah, I think it's on there, isn't it? Didn't I put the mind map? Yeah, if you click the mind map, there you go. Thank you. But I just haven't got the DNS work. So I'm hopeful that some of you or one of you can help with perhaps some of the cPanel. I know that Katrina mentioned that. We can talk about that in a minute.
I can easily help you with that.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I can easily help you.
All right. Well, then you and I can sort that out. So let's go to.
I have a couple of media wikis already.
Okay, perfect. Well, then we can talk. That's something for you and I to follow up on, and which we can do, which is good when you're back from vacation. So finish your vacation, and then we'll.
Don't worry, I'm always always
okay.
online.
Okay, lovely. So Dennis, I think you've got your hand up next. Is that right? Yeah, Dennis. Hit the unmute button.
I don't think I've been much help on the technical side. My days in that kind of stuff were many years ago. However, I think that given the content of the other people who are present, possibly editing and commenting and suggesting what should be the content might be my role as the longest standing member of ISSS. And having a very eclectic background. So I feel able to comment, not always positively, but I hope fairly on all the different strands that have come into ISSS. So I wasn't really quite sure what you needed, but I did sort of glance at the diagram that you just showed earlier, which I forget what you called it,
A mind map.
Dennis. Yeah. I suppose I'd call that. I think I'd call it something like a knowledge tree.
Yeah, knowledge tree. Yeah, that's well. It's the software's called mind map, but you're okay.
Yeah.
Knowledge tree, whatever it is.
My thoughts were that maybe we could start off with 3 heavily blocked words or sentences about what might be called the essential 9 key words in system science or systems thinking, when we won't get into that argument this evening, but only the 9 key words, and that would be one set, and then there'd be another set of the 9 key authors or thinkers from the foundation of the ISSS, and finally 9 current or recent authors who are of significance. Their names would be there. And then moving to the right, in each case, there would be a small piece, no more than 9 short paragraphs, in which those words in the first instance would be explained. And again, there would be some way of blocking or pointing out that certain words were particularly relevant and important. And then the same with the original authors and the same with the current authors. And someone like Deborah Hammond might tell us about the past authors, and someone like Gerald might tell us about the current authors, just for example, off the top of my head. And then from each of those paragraphs, we would pick out, again, the keywords, and we would be able to go further to the right, and there would be another set of paragraphs explaining those keywords and what they mean, and more importantly, what they don't mean. So, for example, we need to make it clear that when we use the word complex, we don't mean complicated, which the ordinary man in the street, they were often, the man or woman in the street, they often think it was the same words, and so on. And that was when the point where we start to include leads to particular references and particular papers, particular other forms of media that you might access. And the reason that I'm putting this forward is that when I try to talk to people, and the point has been made about how do we reach the public and other people who are opinion makers or whatever, Peter and some others will know that I spend a lot of time in the pub, and not just the same pub, more than one pub. And so I do try to communicate with what you might call the man or woman in the street. For example, I went the other evening to a folk club in Saltburn, which is a neighbouring town to where I'm now in Redcar in Cotham. And a guy started reading a poem about the problem of young people and access to resources. And so I contacted him after, and then we arranged to meet this Friday. So we'll be meeting in the same pub this Friday to talk about what he wants to do. Yesterday evening, I was on a Zoom event with the Cooperative Party, which is a political party in the UK, one of the longest standing political parties and the third largest in the UK, although it's not well known. You know, we were discussing that particular issue. We'll have another one soon on climate change.
Okay.
And so on. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think I'm able to add content and also talk about how you actually reach people in political parties, in other groups, in the general public, young people in particular, because that's what I spend my time doing.
Yeah, well, we'll need to empower you, Dennis. I think that's a great contribution. I know that's you know, why you're here, and you know, certainly structuring things in 3s and 9s is one approach, and we can probably do that. I don't think we want to necessarily adopt one approach, otherwise we'll be sitting here talking about.
Can I just say why I choose 3s and 9s?
Yes.
I think 3 is the minimum number you need to use. I think if you go beyond 9, it's too complicated for people. And this is again based on many years of making presentations to all countries across the world. So minimum of 3 and maximum of 9 is what I would say.
Yeah, no, I from a presentation point of view and a communications point of view, I totally agree with you. When I did public relations training, we were told you get your 3 messages and you stick to your 3 messages. And so ISSS should have 3 messages and the moment, and then you could expand each one of those 3s into 9, and it brings coherence. And if you listen to any well-trained politician or communicator who's being interviewed by a reporter, they will stick to the 3 messages and they will steer the conversation back to those 3 messages. So that's something for us in terms of the public relations of ISSS and the communications of systems is absolutely what are the top 3 messages. And we can think about that. We need to think about, unfortunately, our new VP for PR and memberships is back with his family in Iraq after 15 years of being away, and is really dealing with a number of issues, family and geographically and everything else in Iraq. So he's sort of taking a leave of absence from his time. So we may need to all pitch in on that a bit and help out. So thank you, Dennis. I think that's absolutely, you know, good contribution. I will be
meeting him when he gets back in a pub.
Okay, good. That might be a while though.
So I can do that.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. Let me see who else hasn't. Well, I know that
Tom or Katrina.
Tom or Katrina. Yeah, please, one or two of you. Who would like to go first?
I'll go. Actually, I'm going to have to leave in about 10 or 15 minutes, so I probably should jump in here.
Go for it.
I'm a retired software engineer that did a lot of modeling. And when I started studying systems seriously, after initially using separate files for different information, I decided to put everything together in a common model. That was about 15 or 20 years ago. So I have actually several models. The one that's most developed is one called Systems Common. There's a link to it on the web page, the home page of the ISSS. It's very basic, mostly factual information. I tried to separate it that way. So it consists of a repository, which in effect is a database, and it has people, documents, quotations, themes, organizations, very basic things, but quite a few of them. There's hundreds of people, several hundred quotations, and so on. I use it daily and continually update it. Unfortunately, I only update the one on the web maybe a couple times a year. So it's the one that's there, it's out of date. But it already does, I think, a lot of what we're looking to do. So I would be interested in how it could contribute to helping with the issue that we have now. I'm not quite clear on what the knowledge is that you want to put in there, where it comes from and what form it's in. But I would think the basics would fit. It's certainly people and documents and organizations and so on. Probably a lot of them are already in.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. It's I've been working with Tom since I was president of ISSS, and he contacted me early on in my time as president of ISSS and said he'd been doing all this work, and I said great. And he and I worked to get it onto the web. There, if you click the system, there you go. That's the thing to click, and this is it. Thank you, Danielle, for showing this. This is the work that Tom has done, and he sends me the file that he's created, and I work then to put it up on the web. One of the things that Tom and I and Gary Smith have been talking about is the fact that Tom is Tom, and he's one person, and he's using a particular kind of modeling language, or what's it called? No, what's it called again, Tom?
Rational system architect. And I
Right.
think they added designer to it now,
Right.
more recently.
Right, so it's a rational system architect as a software program which is from IBM, and so it's a great contribution, and that's why it's in the box called World of Systems. The problem, if it's a problem, is it's Tom, and when Tom's not here, then what happens? And so redundancy or replicability is an issue which we need to address. We've talked about how he might be able to export that in XML, and we might be able to import it in some other modeling language. And Gary Smith, who works with BAE Systems, has another software system that he's using. And so that's another topic for us to think about, is modeling languages or modeling systems and how they're going. So I'm very grateful to Tom and all the work and our relationship. So that's great, Tom. Thanks for turning up today, and we'll work out where we go with it as part of this conversation. And I'm sure that I can talk a little bit more about modeling languages and open source, and we can have that conversation. Yeah, so Katrina, let's go to you so that Tom can hear what you're interested in and how you might help.
Okay, so I am mainly a researcher, but I have some technical skills. I used to be a web designer, but then I took a long break when I returned to university. So I'm a recent graduate, and I'm getting up to speed on the technology and the changes. And my knowledge is mostly in the realm of web design and things like setting up a MySQL database on a LAMP stack server, and setting up password protected files outside of the public HTML directory outside of the internet. And I used to code by hand without software, mostly just HTML and CSS. And yeah, so I'm just here to contribute in any way that I can. I'm a new member, by the way, of ISSS. And I see this as a good excuse for me to jump back into technology, and hopefully I can contribute. And I love the idea of possibly learning how to build on wikis. That sounds fascinating. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Well, Katrina, welcome to ISSS. Welcome to this eclectic organization. You will find it quite varied in its membership. Which part of the challenge of this whole endeavor. And I would love to talk to you more about all of that, the stack, and the whole thing that we've got going on. And I would love for your help, frankly, particularly on the media wiki, and work with Yanis and me perhaps to start with, and how I can introduce you to the back end of what we've got going on, and you could help me dig out some of the issues on the whole thing. So it's wonderful that you've joined, and I was thrilled to read your intro when you wrote. So thank you so much for joining. And we want to do that. So that's really cool. I think we've gone down the list, right?
I'll also just give a personal introduction and just share my experience with this area.
Yeah, please. And this why coder and where you are and what you're doing, Daniel. I mean, I'd like to know a bit more about what you're at UC Davis, and where are you in your career, and what's going on. Yeah,
sure. I'm a postdoctoral researcher in entomology, in insect biology at UC Davis in California, and I work on the bioinformatics side and also on the cognitive science and cognitive security aspects of insects and humans. And my experience with discourse analysis and ontology driven knowledge engineering has been primarily with another organization that I co-founded, Active Inference Institute. And similar to ISSS, we have a focus on accessibility and rigor. And so this is just like the external view. But what we've done here is we have a ontology of concepts, as well as entities, resources, and a lot of these other domains. And also, Stephen, I really agree with your point about like comparing and contrasting different approaches, because it's like there are some extant things that people have discussed. And so, especially before we like jump with 2 feet on any or like bring anything new in, it's good to like assess how things are working. But in the active inference ontology, which one can see as analogous to the systems thinking ontology, and in fact has many shared terms, we have categories of terms and have them in translation with many languages. And the goal here is to have a triple play, even though there's more than 3 parts, but finding a seamless integration amongst natural language representations in different human languages and different formal representations like equations and simulations, and then finally visualizations of different types. And so these are the English terms. We have translations, as well as we have definitions. And then one way that we operationalize that with the entity modeling is with different entity types. So here we're interested in modeling like learning and education research ecosystems. And so we have different entity types that use the active inference affordance. So we used the more generalized active inference of ontology to structure entity modeling such that someone could say there's a team of 3 people, and that could be the triple play being realized with the natural language description that would be highly translatable, a visualization like with flowcharts that people can see, and then simulations and formal representations also scaffolded to the ontology. So I'm really interested in finding continuity in systems and complexity research and knowledge, because there's so much prior work and hopefully there's so much to come. So being able to increase the ways that people are participating in this area, whatever their like mathematical background or their language of choice is, and then offering ways for people who are very computational, like coming from the machine learning side, who might hear about systems all the time, but not have actually, ironically, a direct inroad to systems engineering. So I see many exciting avenues there, and I'm just really excited to be working with everybody on these topics, because yeah, the ISSS has amazing resources and people, and I think that with many of the pieces of the puzzle already even being seen, it will be possible to have a rhythm as a group, including those who are like not at this meeting or those who will come in, and have documentation such that onboarding and people taking breaks and like just balancing how their contribution on these volunteer opportunities is working with the rest of their life. There'll be great opportunities for well-documented knowledge systems. So as for CODA itself, and one other aspect, I believe one or more people mentioned, like open source, although CODA doesn't have open source, I'm a strong proponent of open source and like open science and distributed decentralized science. And I want to see that work and be a part of it. I also want to be a pragmatist and a pluralist with respect to the amazing proprietary platforms that we have access to, and where those can be used, like Google services and so on. And it's in the sweet spot of utility and people's familiarity and accessibility, it's good to go. But I think having the real architectures that we use be like exportable, documented, and also where possible stored offline, like maybe even Katrina mentioned, so that we're not just like only linking to a material, but also being able to store primary material. There's a lot of features and attributes that, and so Coda is not going to be our only repository or place of work. However, it's an excellent system for this kind of collaborative document writing. In contrast with like a Google Doc, you have a linear document and tables are non-interactive with each other. And so it ends up being a mess of like versioning different things and kind of like archipelagos of documents. Here, we can use nested documents. Each one of these pages is kind of like a cloud document, and it allows really easy cross-referencing. So like using the at can call a page, which makes it a link to that page. It can also call like a person. And in fact, all of the ontologies that were shown from Active Inference Institute, we made them in Coda, because you can have a table where the terms are rows and then you can use the terms. So again, not that we're going to use that or that that's like the final representation, but this helps coordinate quite well, and slash introduces like a lot of templates and things that can be done, and at is like the special reference symbol. Especially early, I'm very happy to play like an active asynchronous structuring role, with the goal being that the document structure is like self-explanatory. And yes, Stephen, I hear you on tools. Actually, I agree. And it's easy to look at the cart before the horse and talk about the cart and not where one is going and so on. So I just wanted to clarify, because tools can be like a rate limiting step. And so I wanted, especially in this first recording and meeting, make sure that people had a little insight into why this is being utilized, although also totally open to others' views. People can explore it more, and we'll go into it more as needed. But for the 20 minutes remaining in this meeting, I think it would be great to there'd be several things that we could explore. For example, how will we continue the discussion in a different direction? I'm totally open to people's thoughts. And so I'll leave it there.
No, thank you for that. I mean, that was wonderful. I'm, you know, I've been feeling like I've been a little bit of a one-person web show up until this year, which is, and it's great to have all this. And I agree with you, Stephen. We have been talking about tools. You know, we can look at, I think, trying to think about this in different levels simultaneously is always a challenge in any system, whether we're talking about the higher goals of systems in its contribution to the world problematique or the world issues. I'm particularly interested in systems contributions to help us in our relationship to the ocean, but I'm also aware that ISSS needs to be a viable organization. And how do you balance open source with proprietary information? And we had this conversation about all of the bulletins and yearbooks and how they're available. Are they available just to members? Are they available freely? Should we charge for them? And so on. So there is the viability of ISSS as an organization, which, you know, affects strategy, which is the position of the board of directors and the council of the ISSS. So we have to look at the business realities, and we're all volunteers as well with limited time. So I don't know, Steve, do you want to just say a few words more about what you know, your reaction there to tools and where you might see perhaps what you've just heard?
Yeah, I may be I may be joining the conversation late or.
No, you're not. No.
Okay, I had assumed that today would be an introduction to the project and perhaps what some of the project objectives might be, or what some of the desired project outcomes might be.
Yeah, fair enough.
And perhaps some preliminary thinking that might have been done around a process for the project, or a set of stages or phases for the project, and maybe those expectations are inappropriate.
No, they're not. They're totally reasonable. And let me just, if I might, just in the essence of moving forward, say that I've only really just got to know Daniel over the last since he was elected VP, which was about 6 weeks ago. And I realized that what we have with Daniel and Rulin, of course, as president, is a unique opportunity of skills, expertise, passion, commitment to systems. And so I sort of jumped on it and said, look, there's all these things that I've managed to amass that are sitting there in different ways with different systems, and can we not bring some coherence to this? So an outcome would be more coherent presentation of the current situation with the ISSS resources, of the history of ISSS documentation that I have and others have contributed to gathering, that is on the current websites of ISSS. So that's an outcome.
Love that outcome.
Okay, so
Yep.
that's an outcome. Now outputs could be, talking points for Dennis in a pub, right? Something he can pull up on his iPad that's 9 points, for pub talk, or a 9-point, pub quiz on systems or something. Or it could be a media wiki that we have that is open source, that anybody can go to. But how do you balance open source, open science, which I talked about at the European Geophysical Union with a colleague from Denmark many years ago. So I'm a big proponent of open science and open source myself. But how do you balance that with the realities of running an organization like ISSS, which is largely volunteer? Well, it's all volunteer, really. And how do you make it viable? So that's a challenge. So an output would be some kind of business model around open source, presentation of materials, for members and for the public. I mean, and I've been playing around by doing it. There isn't a project plan because I honestly, again, as a volunteer, we don't have yet the funds to. Well, it's like a self-help, right? So Daniel and I are making it up as we go along. So contributions from you, brilliant. Whatever you feel like you can contribute. So I thought one of the outcomes of today would be what we're doing right now, and a bit of a plan. Who's going to do what? I think we've already got a sense of what we can do in the next 2 weeks, literally, and come back, in 2 weeks' time with some progress. Don't need to get, I think, really too more specific than that as a project plan, but I'm thinking that the duration of this project will be up until the annual meeting in South Africa. That's the time frame for this project. Is a 10-month time frame, meeting every 2 weeks, doing what we can in between times, and then we'll see where we are in South Africa. It's basically my thought, and I'm open to any pushback, comments, or anything else, please.
I just want to mention that I absolutely love the way this is starting. So entirely open, where everyone involved is helping conceptualize the project rather than, already having a project in mind and then trying to assign tasks to people, which is always kind of boring, right? So I just wanted to comment that I love how you're starting out.
Thank you so much for that comment. You don't know how much that means to me.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Yeah, and I guess there, has there been any explicit guidance or sort of mandate provided to either you, Peter, or to Daniel, from the organization around where they want to get to by South Africa, or what represents progress by the time South Africa happens?
Well, I mean, in terms of this initiative, I mean, slightly because we know that, and Roland's got a hand up, so I'll shut up in a minute. You know, Roland has been with me, if I can say that, from the beginning, in cottoning on immediately what I was trying to do in 2018, and been super supportive, you know, right from the outset in terms of her leadership in action research. And she was the first person to do a Saturday morning session using BlueJeans, which is a precursor to Zoom, or like a Zoom. And so from the outset, she's understood the role of conversation in organizational creation and in the necessity of having conversations for sharing and knowing and let straight on it. So that's so Roland, why don't you say a few words on what you'd like to see in South Africa?
Yes, Stephen, the ISSS is an organization of people that's doing things, individuals that actually decides one day to make a difference. And we coordinate the activities through the board of directors, and as president, technically there's the CEO. I'm not the CEO, but as president, I'm giving guidance and strategic guidance, more important. And I think the board of directors is ready and comprises of a lot of people to take this initiative forward. Now, obviously, this is all done by people on their own time and without any reward except for recognition by the community. So it takes time. But what I want to see in South Africa, is a good start. And you will notice when you see the advertisement for the conference, there's a 3-day workshop, writing retreat, while there's a doctoral symposium. So if we, the group here, or the group of writers on this, can gather for the 3 days and work non-stop in the same room on something like this, if we manage to make a good start and took Yanni's advice with categories and templates, we can add a lot of material by sitting together and working for 3 days on this non-stop. But that will only be productive if we made a very, very strong start before that. So it can be something that happens from time to time, a group of us coming together somewhere in the world, just working together. I don't know where you are, but I'm willing to travel from time to time to say to Peter or somebody, just to sit for a few days and give it a kickstart.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's no charter that, no, I mean, this is Daniel and I, and you know, prompted. I mean, I just decided I was going to do a website when I became president that managed membership. Right. So I just said, you know, Jennifer Wilby was struggling with Drupal, and she said, well, you could, I mean, she gave me access, but she said, there's nobody else I'm going to give access to. And we really didn't have a list of members of ISSS, to be blunt. It took 6 months to get a list together for me to write to the members, say from the president to the members. So I literally, through my College of Exploration, just sponsored the least expensive membership software system I could find, frankly, to just manage membership.
Right.
And so because I didn't have any budget, and I was told that I looked at what was going on with ISSS, and I made the assertion that if they didn't change the way they were doing it, it was going to be out of business within 3-4 years. So we changed that. We turned that around. Okay. And then when Jennifer McCarr, VP Admin, took over from Jennifer Wilby, VP Admin, we met at the INCOSI meeting in January of 2020 in California. And Jennifer Wilby said, well, why don't you make the myISSS.org website the ISSS website? And I said, okay, fine. You know, Drupal was a pain because I'm not a Drupal expert. And the Byzantine management way of doing things with Drupal running on a server somewhere, I don't know where, run by somebody who was in France, who, anyway, that's a long story. I'll share it with you some other time. The point being is that there is an old ISSS website that is Drupal, that's at web2.ISSS.org, and the recent automatic update of the Drupal installation has crippled that history site to the extent it was functioning, and so it's not running right now. So somebody or somehow I've got to get somebody who's a Drupal expert to go and look at what modules that have been updated that have just crippled the website. So, you know, but it's not top of the list. You know, even just keeping the current website going and communication is pretty active job.
So then, Peter, if building the website got you a position as president,
no, but
what's going to happen with Daniel if he's introducing the active inference ontology? We're going to make him God? I mean,
well, that could be exactly. I mean, who knows what's going to happen exactly? You know, that's why this is sort of a creative, you know, yeah, secretary. What's that? I don't
my
know.
preferred
then
position.
You know, if this isn't so, you know, apologies to everyone if my expectation of a formal project definition is too
no, we can create it. We should create it.
Well, no, but I'm hearing it differently now. I'm hearing it almost as a design challenge.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
This is if we take this as a design challenge, where, you know, I'm now looking at Dennis's comment where he's saying there's already too much material to edit down. I'm assuming that there's masses and masses and masses of content that need to be indexed and cross-referenced and otherwise made accessible. We really have a content accessibility design challenge on our hands.
Absolutely. I think that's where I started, because I mean, there's tons of PDFs, right? With all of these fantastic, you know, when I started talking about systems literacy, I went and searched through all the PDFs and found somebody talking about systems literacy, you know, way back when. And I think it's this question of using, I mean, for the last 4 years, we've done all these video sessions with SIGs, and that's all sitting there. It's not indexed properly. I mean, the last, like I put on that mind map, the last index of all of the proceedings and bulletins stopped back in whenever it was. So even bringing the index up to date would be helpful. And then how do you make the index more accessible, right? How do you make searching PDFs more accessible? Do you put all the PDFs in a media wiki and somehow try and, you know, turn them all into text and then import them, or do we do it piece by piece? So there is definitely a content management piece to this in terms of presentation of materials. And I mean, Tom and I talked about this a bit. Just getting it all together in one place electronically. No, I got myself into this by saying in 2015 that in Berlin at the ISSS meeting, I had all these systems people trying to compete with who was on first. And I said, this is ridiculous. I've done this with the ocean science community. Can't we do it with the system science community so we can have systems literacy? That's how I got myself into being VP of Education and then becoming president. Was to and also the fact that I've had experience running my own not-for-profit in the United States for 30 years. So they felt that maybe I had some organizational expertise about getting ISSS sorted out, which I've done the best I can with the resources. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add a note, which is like in general, I plan and hope that these meetings will end on the hour. So I expect to end in several minutes to respect everyone's time. Like we'll start and end on the hour. And for those who have bandwidth in the 2 weeks between meetings, there's always contributions to be made in Coda or however people want to. You know, I made a drawing, here's a picture of it. Or people can always contact Peter and or I if they're having any like uncertainties about participating, because it's going to be like, these are going to be great sync hours together, but it's going to come down to the contributions that we make alone in the times between. And so and like every aspect of this is, and even our ways of working hopefully can be flexible. So I'm just creating, just for this first one, like just an informal to do. People could self-opt or just think to themselves what they want to do, even if it's just consider something or experiment on. Does it have to be Thursdays? No, I'm open and actually expect to do different times. Probably one time closer to like maybe 4 to 6 hours earlier, potentially on a different day, or later, because I know that we have a participant in like Australia, so it's like 4 a.m. or something right now. So yes, like if people have a specific time that realistically that they want to commit to co-working at that time, then we should be able to make it happen. Whatever is going to allow like somebody to have the kind of collaborating niche that supports how they want to do it. So yeah, I think for for a first meeting from coming from a non template, we've already added many things, and it's like a little fractal challenge of what Dennis said, which is like even from the notes from one discussion about systems, we find that there's so much like depth. And then what does it look like when we have archives of decades of those kinds of conversations? And also that's why I see like systems documentation as being representative of many knowledge challenges like that are more disciplinary, and our approaches will transfer to there. Katrina?
Yeah, just I'm just trying to take away a picture in my head from today. And I'm just wondering, are you guys envisioning something like first creating a structure in a secure place to store your massive hierarchy of different kinds of documents, and that's the place where we're conceptualizing how that structure will be, and then once that's created, then we figure out how to make that public. That will just be the backup though, right? That'll be the untouchable kind of backup, but we have to somehow figure out what that structure is going to be first before we start working. Or
Not really. I think, you can go and look at the library, go and even just look under the library tab on ISSS, and you'll see, and go and look at bulletins and proceedings, and you'll see the countless number of PDFs that are there. That's a good start.
Okay, so that structure though, that I see there,
Yeah.
is this something that you're envisioning maintaining, or are you thinking of making a structure that is flexible enough to accommodate ongoing?
Yeah. I don't believe in rigid structures. Yeah.
I would and one thing I plan to do in the coming weeks is like assess some of these modular functional objectives. Like there's like a purely ontological or like schema aspect that's been discussed. There are assessing the resources as they currently stand. There's the question of like the offline data architecture. So to be assessing these modular, and then in a Gantt chart type way, be assessing, okay, we can be just starting with a fresh stack on the data architecture, while these people are going to be focusing on systems ontologies and the terms and the key people, and these people are going to be assessing the locations of the resources. And then we'll see where these different like directions can kind of be brought together. And like this conversation surfaced many of those functional modules. And so to assess how they're going to come together in the coming like 10 months and beyond will be a great like goal for the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's cool. And I would like to work specifically with you, Katrina and Yanis and Steve, in the next 2 weeks, just to figure out some of these issues specifically.
Sure.
And we can do that one-on-one. I mean, on terms of the combination of tools and structure and process, that would be helpful to me.
Sure.
It's the top of the hour, so people who want to depart may feel free to do so. I will stay around for a few more minutes, and the recording will continue if anybody just wants to hang out, or Michael, I see you've joined. So if you want to continue to speak, otherwise, thank you everyone for this meeting, and
thank you.
Good luck and see you soon.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, everybody, for
Thank
being
you,
here.
Daniel, and thank you, Peter.
Exciting.
Good to meet everybody else. Katrina,
Excellent.
Yanis, Michael.
I've got to go, so I'll thank you very much, Danielle, for all you're doing, and everybody for joining.
Everybody.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. It was very, very good first meeting.
Awesome. And thanks,
Thank you.
Dennis.
And I will follow up on one-to-one.
Yeah.
Daniel, I'm not sure I have your email, but I suppose in one of the emails it should be there.
I probably education at ISSS.org goes to me, as
Okay.
well as if I probably sent you an email like with the Zoom link and so on. But yeah,
Yeah.
thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Well,
I
yeah,
have a-
greetings, Michael. Oh yeah, Katrina, please.
Oh, yeah, I just have a question for you, Daniel. Okay, so code is new to me. And it appears something sort of like Dropbox, which I know very well. But this is different. So what do I need for me to do like a speed learning? What should I focus on to really understand Coda and how you're using it so I can learn it quickly?
Awesome. Great question. By and large, when you're in a page, it is exactly like working in a Google Doc in the sense that, you know, the typing is going to be synchronously seen everywhere. And then selecting text allows you to do markdown type changes, like the text formatting, making it into a list, changing the color, and also
Yeah.
adding a comment. Okay. Then on the sidebar, which can be hidden, are nested sub pages. So this is like, I just think of it, instead of making the Google Doc longer of a linear document, this is like where something can be broken out and those nestings can be collapsed. And so the pages can then be linked internally. Like, you know, remember the at September 6th communication.
Mm-mm.
And so, like, I think there's probably a wide range of lumping and splitting possibilities, but I just think of it as like an accordion / fractal Google Doc. And then the two, and there's also like on YouTube and elsewhere, like you can look up some Coda videos, but like the two key pieces to me are the at, because that is like what it's kind of like the dollar sign in the terminal. Like it's like you're going to call something. And so that's where you can reference any row in any table. And so sometimes I'll start by making something a bullet point list. And then slash is the other one that makes a special thing. So I'm going to make a new table. And now this is the outcomes table. And then by moving something into here, now that outcome can be called because it's a row. And then if somebody's like, now that's going to auto change. So if someone says, actually, could you spell my name this way? Or, oh, it shouldn't be strategy. It should be like strategies. Then those hyperlinks to rows can become like highly addressable. And so, and also like the tables themselves will be familiar to you, likely from your database experience, because you can make a view of a table. So like slash, and then I'm just typing outcomes. So now here's the real outcomes table, and here's the view. And now here's going to be a view where I hide that column. So then you can have like the real table is going to be like, has like 150 columns wide. But then there's a translate, like for our ontology in active inference, the full ontology table is like 100 columns wide. But then the translations view hides all the other columns. So tables are like the magical function of Coda, and contrast that with making like a table in a Google Doc or even in Excel or a similar, where the references are easily broken and they're not as semantic or rich. But to me, the at and the slash and playing around with those two will reveal a lot to you.
Okay, so if you change the content of the at, any of the ats, it changes it all throughout the document, all the pieces.
So
Is that right?
You can't edit this blue text.
In
fact, if you go, like, it'll skip you through it, but if you click on it, it'll pop up where it is, and a mouse over also shows you it.
Okay.
And then
That's how they
changing,
keep- Sorry.
yeah. And then you have to change the record in the in its one home,
Mm,
and then that is going to be instantly reflected in all of the references.
okay, that's the source. So you have to change the source and then it's
Yes.
reflected in all the references. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
like I think sometimes think about it as like free write, structured bullet point, bring it into the table, and then it becomes like a true data object, which enables like thinking semantically about data sets and so on.
Okay, yeah. Got it. Thank you. How much are you expecting that the team is collaboratively working on this document, or is this something that I'll mostly be referencing and possibly adding a few little notes to?
There will definitely be sections that you don't worry about editing. Like, you know, past communications, it's more of like an archive. It's not like something that you might need to be thinking about at all. Whereas if someone's going to be doing the assessment of software, then they might be making extensive edits within software, or even making like a sub page.
Mhm.
And so I would expect, especially even at this relatively small size, that people will have like focal trees that they're a lot more engaged and familiar with.
Okay, makes sense. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All righty, so bye. See you
Yes,
next time.
see you. Hey, Michael. Good day.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm very late.
It's totally fine.
Okay. Daniel, it's very good, but I hope I can the version of reading, writing, TV writing. Sorry for my English.
I'm learning Russian, so I hope to eventually communicate with you, perhaps in the native tongue.
Okay, okay, but I think the the community of scientists should solve to the purpose of helping people to accept system ideas. But this is a very specific task. It's my opinion. It's very opinion. It's very specific task.
You believe the specific task is to promote acceptance of system ideas in the community of scientists.
Mhm. Thank you, Daniel. Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Well, that was quite a first meeting. So for those of you who are listening all the way to the end, I hope you enjoyed it. And till next time.